was a vivacious 37-year-old single mother. She lived in Horn Lake, Mississippi. She had 2 children, a 19-year-old son and an 8-year-old daughter. And these children were described as her entire world. Now, Jessica had previously struggled with addiction, but she had conquered it. She was working hard for her kids and hard for herself. She lived with her parents, David and Linda, who often helped her with the kids. No matter where she was or what she was doing, those 2 kiddos came first. Her mother, Linda, said that anything that had to do with her kids, Jessica was always there. Now, Jessica was described in every single article that I read about her as this extremely well put together woman. She prided herself on always being dressed impeccably. She never left the house without her hair done, without her makeup on. Next to her kids, her appearance was the most important thing to her. Her sister Kayla said she was always really dressed up and really pretty, and she knew it. She was a beautiful woman, and she never went unnoticed. She was the life of any gathering, whether it was just you or a room full of 100 people. Her mother, Linda, said she was energetic, outgoing, that she loved people, that she was not judgmental at all, and fun to be around. Her father said she was a good mom, and of course she had problems, everybody does, but some of these problems started being that she was hanging out with the wrong crowd. Her father, David, said that he was kind of disappointed in her, in the choices that she was making and what she was doing. One of her new issues, according to her sister Kayla, was Jessica's new taste in men. Previously, she'd been really, really picky, and so Kayla was kind of surprised when her last 2 boyfriends were kind of mean and narcissistic. She said, I can't explain what she was attracted to. The crazy thing is, Jessica had never been attracted to men who were, like, tattooed up. Neither one of my girls ever had any tattoos or piercings, Linda added. So when Jessica began dating this man named Garland Hart, her friends and family were pretty concerned. Hart had a reputation around their community for selling drugs. He was rather rough on the women in his life, and as a recovering addict, Jessica's friends and family were not entirely sure that this man was a good match for her. But Jessica was smitten. She had little hearts in her eyes. She believed that she could help him with his own addiction. She believed he needed her and that she could save him, which I believe is a lot of our downfalls as women. So that takes us to June 1st of 2017. Jessica had called her 8-year-old daughter and let her know that she'd be home later in the evening than normal. Her daughter relayed this information to her grandparents, and they had not seen Jessica since the day before due to some conflicting schedules. Jessica went about her day. She picked up her friend Katie from work. Katie had financial stability because he's a dealer. So when Jessica wanted to spend time with him, she would often pack an overnight bag and stay at Jesse's house with the two men. Now Katie is pretty upset on her friend's behalf, and she wants to go with Jessica to Jesse's house to get her stuff. So when they get there, Jessica just gets really noticeably erratic and becomes pretty close to inconsolable. Katie is fed up with the drama, and she's like, look, I'm leaving. You can go with me or you can stay here. Jessica decides to stay, and Katie's like, alright, you gotta deal with this on your own. At around 6 p.m. on June 1st, Katie leaves. She watches as Jessica continues to argue with Garland and Jesse. This is the last time that Jessica is reportedly seen alive by anyone other than Garland and Jesse. The next day, on June 2nd, Linda and David grow increasingly concerned. Jessica has not returned home. She's not answering phone calls. She's not replying to text messages. And this is completely unlike Jessica. She, literally had her phone glued to her hand all the time. So Linda is certain that whatever trouble that her daughter has found herself in, it is courtesy of Garland Hart. Jessica had told her mother more than once that if anything happened to her, she should find him. What? He's known for being violent. He had a warrant out for domestic assault from a case that was not in association with Jessica. So, when Jessica becomes unreachable, Linda knows that her boyfriend is responsible. Later that morning, and I cannot imagine this, Linda gets a call from the coroner, and he says to her that Jessica has been found deceased. Linda was informed that Jessica had unalived herself. Now, this is how the case kind of goes. I'm sorry if that was loud. It's a million degrees here. Between 9:30 and 10:30 a.m. on June 2nd, a mail carrier found Jessica's body next to the mailbox located at Jesse's house. It's a regular mailbox, 3-4 feet high. The mail lady found her, and she freaks out, and she calls the help. And another mailman shows up and starts to take pictures. And these pictures are what Jessica's family gets. And apparently they were released online, but I did not look for them. I did see the mailbox. These images show Jessica on her knees with her legs curled underneath her. She has shoelaces around her neck in like a noose. Her purse is open on the ground, placed between her knees, and she is leaning backwards. Her sister Kayla says there's no way that her sister was going to have herself on display like that. She had no makeup on. She was dressed in someone else's clothing, and even before her family saw these images, her family and friends knew that there was no way that she would unalive herself, let alone by hanging. Her drug of choice was Xanax. She would have went to sleep, Linda says, and believe me, Jessica would have fixed herself up. She would have been like Sleeping Beauty. These photos are even more proof to her family that Jessica had not taken her own life. As I said, she was not wearing her own clothes. Her hair was not done. She had no makeup on. And her family just knew that she would not do this to herself. She had taken steps towards stability, and she was way too involved with her children to do this. But no one death certificate noted the cause of death as unaliving by asphyxiation. They did not do an autopsy, according to the DeSoto County Coroner's Office. However, it was later found that at least a partial autopsy must have been done because she did have Xanax in her system at the time of her death. But it was not enough to warrant an overdose. They noted her time of death as being around 3:30 a.m., but her 19-year-old son said that he had gotten a text message from his mother around that time, indicating she was either alive at the reported time of death or someone else had used her phone to send this text. I have no idea what it said. At this point, police still fully believe that she has taken her own life. They did follow up on some tips and took some minimal investigative measures. They noticed that Jesse's home had security cameras, and one camera was pointing directly at the mailbox. However, they never asked for the footage, and the footage was never volunteered. Now tell me that if you had someone unalive themselves on your mailbox, and you had nothing to do with it, and you weren't out there, and no one that you knew was out there, and you really believe that that's what happened, that you would not have immediately been like, here's the footage, I didn't do anything, because that's what I would have done. So Jesse and Garland are, of course, both questioned. However, they were never named as suspects. Police took them in at face value when they told them that Jessica had been emotional and erratic the night before. They told police that she and Garland had gotten into a fight and that she wanted to leave. But when Garland would not leave with her, she decided to stay. However, they removed her from the house when her behavior became more and more lovesick and dramatic, according to Jesse. I don't understand. If she's fighting with him and she wants to leave, why does she want to leave with him? Like, get out of there, girl. Jessica's family believe that Jesse and Garland are hiding something. They also refuse to believe the coroner's report. They believe that the police did not want the mess of investigating an official death homicide on their plate, knowing that the dealing of drugs could possibly be involved. In their opinion, the police wanted to wash their hands of this and pretend like it never happened. So they decide to hire their own forensic expert. Dr. Maurice Godwin requested all of the files on the case and soon realized that the shoelaces found around Jessica's neck had never been turned over to the family, nor had they been tested by the police. And furthermore, when he tried to request them, the shoelaces were missing entirely. They had lost the evidence. Dr. Godwin also took a look at the available crime scene photos, and in his opinion, the entire scene was staged. He was of the opinion that had she taken her own life, her hand would have stayed resting in her purse. He also noted that the clasp on her purse was broken, as though it had been involved in a struggle, something the police failed to notice. He also believed that she would likely have been found leaning forward. However, she was found leaning back, as though she was looking up at someone. As I said before, her body was found on the ground, with her knees bent and her feet underneath her. Her neck had been tied to a waist-high mailbox with 2 shoestrings fashioned like a noose. Based on the way the string is dramatically that night. They got sick of it. They kicked her out of the house. She wouldn't leave. I really wish that they were able to do another autopsy on her so that we could